Tithing and wealth, the truth about tithing. So if you don't know me, my name is Mackenzie Long. I've been teaching people how money works for the last 8 years. It's something that's not taught in school, so most people are financially illiterate, which means they make lots of mistakes when it comes to money, and they're oftentimes taken advantage of. And we're building an army of agents to help eradicate financial illiteracy. So I've taught hundreds of people how to be entrepreneurs and had thousands of clients to help become financially successful. And one of the common questions I get is around tithing. And obviously when we're talking about tithing, one of the big things that comes up is religion. And I will just say I am a Christian, but I want to take that off of the plate and not talk about the religious aspect of it in giving money, because that's really not what it is. God does not need more of your money. So let's take that part off of the plate and just talk about it from a perspective of giving away 10%. So with that out of the way, I think one of the safe things we can say is people generally don't have a challenge with a particular thing. They have the challenge with the management of it. And I think that's especially true when it comes to money. People don't have a challenge with money. They have a challenge with managing their money. And this is true with just about everything in people's lives. People's problem is not life, it's how do I manage life? People's problem is not health, it's how do I manage health? And so with almost everything in life, the challenge becomes management. How do I take everything that's coming at me in life and manage that? And that's really what tithing has to do with more than anything else. And if you can't manage the 10%, how do you expect to ever be able to manage the other 90%? And that goes for everything: your money, your time, your assets, your family, your faith, your fun, your finances, everything else gets wrapped up in that. If you can't control 10%, the likelihood of you being able to control the rest of it is very, very low. And then oftentimes one of the comments becomes, well, what about people who are not doing very well financially? Or what about those people who don't make as much money? And the beautiful part with that is that it's a percentage, it's not an amount. If the amount was $5,000 a month, well, then that would be a much harder goal for some people to reach than it would be others. But when it's a percentage, it becomes more about management and habit than it really does about having enough or not having enough. And sometimes I'll get comments about, well, that's not really fair. You're putting down people who don't make as much money or don't have as much ability to be able to have income. And really, that's not the case. And these are the people who really need it the most. The reason why most people outside of a cognitive ability, if you fall into that maybe 10% of the population that just really can't find any type of way to be able to create income or to get ahead in life, then we're not talking about that. We're talking about the other 90% plus the population who can get ahead. They just need more skills to be able to do so. So with it being a percentage, if you have less, you give less. And if you have more, you give more, but the percentage is always going to be the same. So one of the challenges, people say, well, when I have enough, then I'll be able to give some away. And the challenge with that is they never seem to end up actually having enough. And this is a thought process or a mindset shift that needs to happen. And this is one of the beautiful things with tithing, which we'll talk about the gifts that we actually get from tithing here in a second. But to get back on topic, you would probably agree with me that most people feel in such a way that when they get to this position, or when they have a spouse, or when they get this job, or when they're making this much money, then they will be happy in life. And this is almost the exact same thing that tithing is supposed to be teaching us. And it's not just about money, it's about every aspect of our life. And money just happens to be an easy thing to be able to calculate. And it's also one of the things that most people are least educated on. So it's one of the biggest challenges for us, but I think it impacts every other area of our life. And there's actually a short book that was written by Anthony McNair. It's called Tithe, A Living Testimony. And Andrew McNair is actually not a minister. He owns a wealth management firm, which is surprising to a lot of people. But in this quote, he says that he's worked with over 100,000 families. And of those that tithe, they're actually happier and more prosperous than those families who did not tithe. And even though I haven't hit 100,000 families yet, I would say that rings true as well in what I've experienced. Now, I can't mathematically say how that makes sense. How could you possibly ever do better with 90% than you do with 100%? And people will oftentimes bring the faith aspect into that of, well, you're giving 10% away, so you're allowing God to bless your life, and he can do more with 10% than you can obviously do with 100%. And although there may be validity in that in the Christian message, I totally get that. But outside of that, I want to think about things that you can get. If we want to take the religious aspect away from that, what are some things that you actually learn? What are your gifts that you get when you give away 10%? And now how you give away 10% is really up to you. It could go to your church if you wanted to, if you're of faith like I am. It could also go to other things that you have great beliefs about, or whether it's sex trafficking in children, or you want to take care of orphans, or help take care of dogs, or whatever it might be. Giving away that 10% gives you some gifts as well. Now, if you're giving to gain, that usually doesn't work, but here are some things that you do get for my more technical people who want to understand why this works. And for this, you're getting accountability, discipline, diligence, and trustworthiness, which I think are great gifts to be able to receive. But learning how to use 90% of something and give 10% away allows you to become accountable, because you have to hold yourself accountable. You've got to be able to make sure that you're doing it, which also requires discipline. It's easy not to do it. It's easy to do, and it's easy not to do. So being disciplined will help you there. Also, your diligence of being honest, which leads into the last one of trustworthiness, that you're actually going to do it when it feels good and when it doesn't feel good. It's always easier to tithe when you have a big check than when you have smaller checks. And it's funny because the amount is different, but it doesn't feel the same. It can feel harder when you make a little bit less, or when you have lower cycles, or things are getting a little bit more tight. But I think that's also where you learn the lesson the most. And I think just about any successful person will tell you that when their back was against the wall and they didn't know how they were going to make things happen, that's generally when they found their success, was when they were willing to push the envelope all the way to the end, and they were still able to keep their principles and stay true to their beliefs, that they found new levels within themselves. They figured out how to still be able to get things done, because their back was against the wall and they had no choice to figure it out. And sometimes that might be the exact lesson that you haven't learned yet, or the exact lesson that you're going to need at a new stage in your life when the stakes are even bigger. You might have to learn that again. So don't forget, if this was helpful for you, make sure you hit the like button and also the subscribe as well. And I will see you guys soon.